Well, I was born on the 18th of November 1924 down in Dorset, as you can tell from the accent. And it was in 1953 that I was baptized May the 24th with my dear wife Vera. I was contacted in 1951 at the time of the Clean Worship Assembly, which was held at Wembley Stadium. And at that time, the brothers used to go from house to house looking for accommodation for the delegates. And so they called on where we were living then in Witton, which is near Twickenham. And we decided to put up two sisters, mother and daughter, pioneers. But sadly, at the time of the convention, the mother wasn't well, so the daughter came. And so we entertained the daughter for the time of the convention, Clean Worship Assembly, Clean Worship Convention. Then after it was all over, the brother, Norman Richards, that had contacted us for the accommodation, he came round and gradually we started a study with him. And that was on the Let God Be True. He was then the congregation servant. And then just a few years, 2 or 3 years later, I was privileged to become the assistant congregation servant. So that's how it all started.
And then did you have family at that time?
We had 2 boys. Well, Edward was born in 1951 and Matthew was born in 1955. So we were bringing up the children, and then eventually we were invited to become a substitute circuit overseer. And that was for about 4 years. And then we were invited to go on the regular circuit work because the children were grown up by then. And so in 1982 we started on the regular circuit work until we felt to come off in 1997, because if I'd stayed on another 3 years, it would have been 76. So it was better to come off when we were a sort of going concern, rather than somebody say, "Don't you think it's time you came off?" Myself particularly, not so much Vera, but myself had been a church member, but not very active. And I was a bit sort of dubious about getting involved. But then as Norman began to unfold the truth, we could see this makes sense. This was sensible. And so we looked into it a lot more, and we took to it quite well, really, I suppose. We became quite zealous, even though we had the family, everything we did. In 1959, for instance, after we'd been at the 1958 International Convention in New York, we decided as a family that we would move to serve where the need was greater. And so we decided to ask where we could go, and we were invited to go up into Lancashire. So this meant that I had to give up only company work and secular work. So the chairman asked, why are you leaving? And I told him why we were leaving, because we were going to move to where there was a need greater than there was in London. And that would mean that I'd have to leave, it was too far to travel. So he said, well, what about the company, the studio we have in Manchester, if you got that way? Well, I said, yes, there is that, but there is no position for me there. And he said, I'll set one up for you. And I said, well, there's another thing. I'd like to go part-time and work 3 days a week. Well, he said, I'll tell you what we'll do. He said, look, if you will stay with us, we'll give you a car, a company car, and you can have the same rate of pay that you're getting full-time for part-time. So it was too good to miss, really. And so we moved. We bought ourselves a 3-ton truck. We moved many up. In fact, there were 5 families we moved up altogether. And when the local branch in what was then 34 Craven Terrace, London, they were going to move to the new premises at the Watchtower in Mill Hill. So we used the truck we had to move the brothers' equipment and luggage and all the rest of it between the two. So the truck did admirable service during all this time, travelling up and down the country with brothers moving where the need was greater, and then of course the Bethel brothers. And so that was the start of it all. But they were exciting times, good times from the point of view of the truth. The truth was really developing, particularly in Britain. It was growing. It was growing and developing well. Printing was gradually improving from what it was in the early days with the old letterpress, for instance. Now we have these Roland man presses producing 90 to 105,000 magazines an hour. Yes. So technology has grown with it. The travelling work was, well, we love the travelling work. Both of us, Vera and myself, love that. I mean, moving around, it was interesting, fascinating, delightful to be with the brothers, to be able to help them, to be able to encourage them, to help them to grow. Yes, we had happy times on the travelling work. And I've never, in my whole life, had so many homes that I could call my home. We were wealthy, spiritually, yes.
Did you have a flat? Did you have a car?
We had a car, but we didn't have a flat as such. We did eventually. The authorities gave us a little small house that we could have because of the work we were doing, but we didn't always go back there. We sometimes stayed with the brothers and enjoyed our Monday with them. But yes, it had great variety.